Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. We don't think of it often, but perhaps we should. It took a lot of courage for St. Paul to do what he did. Not preaching the gospel, although that takes a certain kind of courage too, but what I'm talking about is his courage to keep on going after he had been arrested. There were times he had been flogged or beaten. He was thrown into prison where he suffered all sorts of deprivation. And the frank truth is that if you went through any of that, not to mention all of that, you might find it hard to keep going. But there Paul went. As soon as he was out of prison, he was back at it again. And throughout his time as a prisoner, Paul used the opportunity to tell the guards and other prisoners about Jesus. So he would ask the churches to which he wrote to pray, not for his release, but that he would have the courage to continue preaching. This week we are exploring some of the letters of Paul that Paul wrote while he was in prison, and in particular looking at ways that he spoke about hope and encouragement for others, even though he was in a bad situation himself. In addition, we have spoken about the pandemic and how that has been our own time of imprisonment and how we need hope and encouragement too. Today we are going to look at some passages under the theme courage and joy, and our first passage is from his letter to the Ephesians. In chapter 6, verses 19 through 20, we read, "Pray also for me, that when I speak, a message may be given to me to make known with boldness the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains. Pray that I may declare it boldly, as I must speak." So we see him asking for their prayers, for his ability to preach and to continue making known the gospel. But I think the other phrase that resonates with us here is where he calls himself an ambassador in chains. I think sometimes when we are in trouble or difficulty, we think of ourselves as in chains in a way, and usually we let that debilitate us. But what's interesting is that Paul never let it debilitate him. He was in chains, yes, but was an ambassador in chains. No matter what, he was still finding a way to make known with boldness the mystery of the gospel. In his letter to the Philippians, Paul begins to talk about the effect of his imprisonment and the gospel. In chapter 2, verses 12 through 14, we find, "I want you to know, beloved, that what has happened to me has actually helped to spread the gospel, so that it has become known throughout the whole imperial guard and to everyone else that my imprisonment is for Christ. And most of the brothers and sisters, having been made confident in the Lord by my imprisonment, dare to speak the word with greater boldness and without fear." In other words, Paul's courage to preach has been contagious. His own doing it while in prison has encouraged others to do it too. And the same goes for us as well. As we continue to be faithful in our difficulties, others are strengthened too. Finally, for today, we turn to his letter to the Colossians, where in chapter 1 he writes, "May you be made strong with all the strength that comes from his glorious power, and may you be prepared to endure everything with patience, while joyfully giving thanks to the Father, who has enabled you to share in the inheritance of the saints in light." And here we have Paul speaking in all boldness, confident that God will bless all of us with strength and fortitude and courage to endure and give thanks no matter what comes. Turning again to Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the theologian imprisoned by the Nazis, we find a poem that contains both this courage and frailty. "In me there is darkness, but with you there is light. I am lonely, but you do not leave me. I am feeble in heart, but with you there is help. I am restless, but with you there is peace. In me there is bitterness, but with you there is patience. I do not understand your ways, but you know the way for me." Lord Jesus Christ, you were poor and in distress, a captive and forsaken as I am. You know all man's troubles. You abide with me. When all men fail me, you remember and seek me. It is your will that I should know you and turn to you. Lord, I hear your call and follow. Help me. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.